Well, hello there, you beautiful, beautiful people. I just thought that I would do a third video. That's it. This is 3 of 3. So unless this is the third video that you've watched from me today, what have you been doing? After this video, go hunt the others. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff kicking off around the Bryan Kohberger camp right now as we hear about this secret grand jury, and that's obviously ruffled quite a lot of feathers, and I get it. Like, people have said, look, the guy's still going to get his day in court, which I get that. At the end of the day, the grand jury is there to determine probable cause and to look over the evidence which they are given and say whether it can move forward. There comes a big issue there though, because we know very well that when this situation occurs, the evidence that they get to see is handpicked. It's almost like, yeah, we don't want to show him that because that might fucking help him. That looks really bad. He can have that. This what do you reckon, Jeff? Nah, like, yeah. Do you see what I mean? And you get a little bit of that. So this, really, they should have just stuck with the preliminary hearing. It would have been fair and people would have been happy. Because look, even myself, who I'm not 100% sure on whether Bryan Kohberger did this on his own, for those people who get so confused about my kind of stance, mind you, I get confused about my stance on it. But at the end of the day, I've always said that Bryan Kohberger has some form of connection to 1122 King Road and this situation. I've never thought otherwise. Now, how he is connected to it, and that's the big thing, and I feel that it's very important for us to be able to understand that. It's important for everybody to understand certain things. Do you know what I mean? I know that we're not obligated, or no one's obligated to tell us everything, and there is things that can be, I suppose it could be argued that you don't need to know because it could affect the trial, but ultimately when something like this happens, people deserve certain answers. They deserve transparency. They deserve to know whether there are people that they need to watch out for, situations that they need to be aware of, and that's where this becomes then a grey area. But look, anyway, it's happening. There's going to be a grand jury, and whatever will be will be. He will still get his day in court, but whether there's going to be things like the Bethany Funk situation that now gets scrapped, so that potential exculpatory evidence won't get looked at, and that will be who knows, who knows. But all that we do know is Bryan Kohberger is rarely going to have to, if he didn't do it, he's rarely going to have to pull out all the stops and now show that he truly wasn't, and that's where it's going to be difficult. But in terms of will it be a fair trial, that's open for interpretation, I guess. But look, there is some terminology within the court documentation, and it's leading people to believe that there is a potential informant involved, and it seems to be around the genealogy where people are getting confused. And I think this is the mainstay of the problem of the genealogy entire situation as to why in many cases they're apprehensive about using it. And I would imagine that when they talk about the informant, they're actually talking about the family member or the person who they got the DNA comparison from. Let's not forget that Bryan Kohberger's DNA was apparently on a knife sheath. It was touch DNA or, you know, transferred DNA from someone else, who knows. But they needed to get a match, and they went onto databases, so on and so forth, and then they went to the trash and got more. But ultimately, the DNA that they used to match it was from a third party. It wasn't from Bryan Kohberger. So when you've retained something or obtained something from a third party, that third party, there are laws and legislation in place that protects them, their anonymity. And it's the same with GDPR legislation in the UK. It's a really grey area. And, you know, if there is we don't know entirely how they managed to get another sample. Maybe they spoke to a cousin, maybe they're just referring to his father. We do not know, but ultimately that other DNA came from a third party. That would be classed as an informant, someone who provided a sample, or they obtained a sample from, which was able to do this. And that's the issue. They said, I read something not so long ago about this, I did the article, remember, and they were talking about this in particular. And they were talking about when people upload this data to this database and they perhaps don't know, and then later on their information could potentially be used to convict someone in their family. Some people don't want to know that information. They don't want to know that they've got that relative. They don't want to know that they've had a hand in finding them. They also don't want any backlash if indeed there's backlash there to be had. Does that make sense? When some, you know, some family members don't get along. That'd be like my mother-in-law doing something. She finds out that she spent 10 years in prison because my DNA sample that I sent off, or my other halves, where I've bagged it up and sent it like a toothbrush or something, and she fucking hunts me down like a rabid animal because I've stitched her right up. But look, that's the informant. I don't think there is an actual informant in terms of within that documentation at this time. Now, I'm not saying there isn't an informant somewhere else, and what maybe pointed them in the direction in the right first place, but with regards to what is contained in the court documentation, that's my take on it. But I'm harsh. It's the third video. Remember, like the damn video. I've worked hard for you. And now I'm going to sleep. I'll catch you in the next one.